How's it going, guys? It's Doc. Plan B just released a new video and tweet stating that Bitcoin can go to $300,000 or $400,000 this year. And after looking at the math, I actually see how he gets there and how it's feasible. We're gonna break that all down in this video. But before we get started, welcome back to the channel. My name's Doc. Throughout the day, I'm a resident physician, and at night, I take you guys on my crypto and investing journey. Had to share this with you. I actually back tested all the math to make sure that it's working out. Really quick, gonna talk about Bitcoin before we go into his price prediction. Bitcoin at $105,000 on the weekend, a little bit lower volume. So I'm actually really happy to see that we're only a couple percent away from an all-time high, right? A few days ago, we dipped to the low 100s, but we bounced right off that 100, 101 mark. So that's really reassuring. We're above the bull market support band on the one-day chart, and we're flirting below, that's this white line here, the 50-day moving average. If we move this to a smaller time frame, we can actually see that we're above the 50-day moving average. So that means that on a shorter time frame, we have more bullish momentum. And you can also see on the MACD as well, we're also flashing green as well. So that's all reassuring. This video, though, is about Bitcoin, or excuse me, Plan B's Bitcoin price prediction. And I've referenced this once before, but he just put out a new video. So I feel like we had to talk about this because it really is important and it's actually feasible, right? So he put out this tweet. When was this? Okay, he just put out this tweet yesterday. So this is very real. He said Bitcoin's price as a rounding arrow, it's right around $100,000 and it's perfectly in line with an S&P at $6,000. And which, by the way, guys, the S&P closed at $6,000. So that's good. We're on point there. He says that as the S&P closes to $7,000, that would align with a $300,000 Bitcoin. So let's go through this. I actually have a pretty decent background in math. So we show an R-squared correlation coefficient of 0.873. So it's a pretty strong correlation. The x-axis here, it's the S&P 500, and then the y-axis is Bitcoin. Don't let any of this confuse you. I promise I'm going to just break this down and make it very easy. So we can see Bitcoin's price right here is 100 grand. If we move over, that correlates to this pink dot. And then if we move right here, this line right here, this up and down one, this represents a $7,000 S&P 500. So if we come up on this line to find a 7,000 S&P 500, this would put us at roughly a $300,000 Bitcoin. And I'm going to show you right now why that isn't that surprising. Also, if you're getting any value out of this, consider hitting the like button, subscribing. Let me know, where do you think both the S&P and Bitcoin's heading this year? And I'm actually genuinely curious, do you think the S&P hits 7,000 first or Bitcoin hits 300,000 first? So I actually marked a lot of this stuff out just to make it as easy as possible. So February 2024, it's actually like that first week in February, the S&P, right? That's what the S&P-X ticker is. SPX is S&P 500. It hit $5,000. That's the first time that it broke $5,000. We're looking at the S&P on the weekly chart here. And then approximately 9 months later, the S&P hit $6,000. So roughly a 20% increase, right? From $5,000 to $6,000, right? 20% of 5,000 would be 1,000, and that's how we got to 6,000. Okay, so that took roughly 9 months. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice, but the real question is, when does the S&P hit $7,000? And the move from 5,000 to 6,000 is actually a bigger move than the move from 6,000 to 7,000 on a percentage basis, right? I know they're absolute 1,000-point moves, but the percentage, it doesn't have to move as much. I think it's roughly 16 or 17%. So this is where the S&P is right now. Back at $6,000, we're almost at new all-time highs. And guess what? That matches very closely with Bitcoin, almost at new all-time highs. And again, that's on the 4-hour chart. If we move it over to the daily chart, it makes a lot of sense. So S&P almost at new all-time highs. When do we hit $7,000? Well, I don't know if we take this path or if we take this path or if we take this path. But guess what? At some point, the S&P is going to hit $7,000. And the reason that I say that is because the US continues to print money. the entire globe continues to print money, right? We're going to look at global money supply here just in a second. But as the world keeps printing money, risk on assets are going to keep going up, right? S&P 500, Russell 2000, Bitcoin, they are going to keep going up. So it really is just a matter of time before the S&P hits 7,000. It took 9 months to get here this time. Well, if it took another 9 months, we were in November last time. That means we would be roughly late summer, August/September. Now, obviously, I don't need to tell you that there's a lot of life world events going on right now, and this video is not about that. But whether it takes another 9 months to get from 6,000 to 7,000 on the S&P 500, or if it takes a year or 2 years, at some point we are going there. And the reason that I say that is, even if we were to get a pullback, if you were a bear and you said, hey, Doc, like, I think we're going to get a pullback. Okay. Even if we pull back for, this was December to December, even if we get a month-long pullback or 7 or 8 month pullback, eventually this corrected and we got back to where we were roughly a year or two later, right? So we're going to hit 7,000. It's just a matter of time. Now, the other interesting thing that Plan B said in his newest video that he just released is he talked about the RSI. So right now, Bitcoin roughly, it depends on the time frame that you look, the RSI is roughly 69. And he says, hey, he thinks we're going to an RSI of 80 plus. So this is his RSI chart. It's nothing special. You've seen this all the time. He just color coordinates it based on the number of months until the next halving, which, by the way, we're roughly 3 years away from the next halving. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. So this is his RSI chart. He talks about his RSI chart in his most recent video here. And he says, just like he said in this tweet, that RSI is going to go back above 80, right? It's happened in all the cycles. This is the line for 80. Every prior cycle, we've been above 80, right? You can see that here. I actually like this chart a little bit better. This line here is 80 RSI, and you can see we went durably above in 2021. We went durably above in 2017-18, and we went durably above in 2013-14. If history repeats, Plan B goes on to say in this video that if we get several months of the RSI, specifically he said 4, if we can get 4 months of an RSI above 80, he suspects Bitcoin's price wouldn't be 300,000, but it would actually be $400,000. Now, do I think Bitcoin is going to hit $400,000? Well, I don't have a crystal ball. Truly, I don't. And anyone who tells you price is going to happen at this certain date, they're simply guessing, right? Doesn't matter how much confidence they say it with, they're guessing. Here's what I will say. I do think the all-time high is not in for Bitcoin yet. And the way that I'm going to start DCAing out of the market is I really like Benjamin Cohen's risk metrics on his website Into the Cryptoverse. Okay, so he assigns a risk metric from 0 to 1 based on Bitcoin's price. And you can see in the past, we've hit a risk metric above 0.9, right? So again, in 2021, we were above 0.9. Obviously in the 2017, 2018, we actually hit 1, and then same in the 2013, 2014 cycle. Not long ago, in March of 2024, and that's when we had that mini alt season, Bitcoin was approximately 0.74 for the risk metric. Here's my plan. Once we get back above 0.7, I'm going to slowly start DCAing out of my positions. So a 0.7 risk correlates to a price of approximately $139,000. And I'll DCA out a little bit every time we hit 0.05. So like I'll DCA out at a little bit at 135. I'll DCA out a bigger chunk at 0.75. Once we get to 0.8, I will be taking more money out in a pretty aggressive way. Now, obviously, I will not be selling all of my crypto. I will hold on to a moon bag, not only for Bitcoin and ETH, but other projects that I have a lot of conviction in. If you watch the channel, you know what they are. This is not a video on those. This is a video about Bitcoin, but I talked about this in my Bitcoin halving video, right? So 2 months ago, I made a Bitcoin halving 2028 price prediction, and I go through a lot of data in that, right? It's a 23-minute long video. I'd highly recommend you check that out. I'll link it down in the description below. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Do you think Bitcoin can hit $300,000 or $400,000 based off Plan B's most recent Twitter posts and videos? Personally, if you made it this far along, I think those targets are a little aggressive. I get it. He created the stock flow market. He's a perma bull. Him and Tom Lee kind of share that same narrative, which I think is good, right? And we have seen price prediction for Bitcoin and crypto fly once we're in a super, super bullish market, a risk on asset, risk on environment. And guess what? That could be happening towards the end of the year as interest rates come down and a lot of these world events start to settle out. If you got any value out of this, hit the like button, consider subscribing, and let me know down below what happens first. S&P 500 hitting 7,000 or Bitcoin hitting 300 grand first. I'll see you guys in my next video.